Welcome to Clayton Valley Presbyterian Church. I'm Kathleen, and I'm glad you're here today for this version of Godly Play. We come to Godly Play, to the circle, after spending time in worship. Teachers greet everyone at the door, and we get ready to come to worship at the circle. We're called by name, one by one, as we form a story circle. And the teacher, whoever's teaching that day, always greets us in the same way. The Lord be with you. Every tray, every box, every basket in this room is a story. And we come here to match our story to where we are in the church year. So let me go over to the circle of the church year as we're changing our seasons here, leaving the joyous time of Christmastide and moving in to some ordinary time marked by the color green. But we're not quite ready to leave Christmas behind us as we make this transition. And so today, we'll look at the mystery of Christmas one more time. Watch where I get the story. When you're at the circle, you can always go get a story that you've heard here in this room to make for your work. So you want to know where to get it and where to put it back. It's right behind me here in the stories that represent the way we worship together. It looks like a parable, doesn't it? It's a gold box, just like the parables. And it has a lid, just like the parables. Look on the front. The stars surrounding the Mother Mary and the child. It's a representation of the incarnation, just a big word that means that God became a baby, and that is full of mystery. Let's see what else might be in here today. You remember that white is the color of joy and mystery. We use white during Christmastide. And we're just transitioning now. The mystery of Christmas is bigger than just the day that we celebrate. It's a much bigger story. There are parts of the story that aren't told very often, and we should tell all of it, even the sad parts, for they're important. At the beginning of the story, the angel came to Mary. She was just a teenager. The angel came to Mary, and you see the angel, don't be afraid. That's what angels always say, right? And the angel told Mary that she would have a child, and that this child would be from God. What a great mystery, and how strong Mary was as just a girl. To speak with an angel and to accept that something that was so hard to understand, so mysterious, would be her life. This is when it was announced, and so we use another big word, the Annunciation, for a piece of art like this. Mary, of course, had to tell her family, but the angel came to Joseph in a dream. so that he would understand, and he helped her with that. So indeed, she did begin to feel the child grow within her. Mary was lucky because she had a cousin, Elizabeth. Elizabeth was much older, perhaps the age of Mary's mother, and she too, at the time, was expecting a child, even though she was really thought too old to be having a child. Mary went to see her cousin Elizabeth. You can see here where the artist is making Elizabeth's skin darker to make her look older. And something amazing happened in this visit. For Elizabeth, when she saw Mary come through the doorway, felt her child move within her. And Elizabeth said, "Mary, your child will indeed be special, for I know that my child has recognized this in you." We call this art, which many artists have created, a picture like this, the visitation. But there's more to this story, for Elizabeth was married to a priest at the temple named Zechariah. And when Zechariah was in the temple one day, he saw this bright light, and, well, you know, it was an angel. And the angel came to Zechariah and explained that he and Elizabeth would have a child, even though they were much older. And in fact, Zechariah said, "But we're too old." And that was the last thing he said. It's just not a good idea to argue with an angel. Mary stayed for 3 months when she was visiting with Elizabeth. And she went home, and the baby came, and friends came to help Elizabeth. And of course, when the little boy was born, they wanted to name him Zechariah after his father, for that was the custom then. But Zechariah shook his head. Of course, he had no words because the angel had taken them. But he wrote, "His name is John." And as soon as he wrote that, and everyone looked and said, "Ah, John," Zechariah could speak again. John and Mary's baby would be cousins, and their lives would be connected always. And then it was time for Mary's baby to be born. You remember this part of the story so well. We call something like this that an artist paints the nativity, the birth. We see Mary lying down with the baby. She looks very happy. Joseph looks very tired, doesn't he? I guess he's, after walking all that way and waiting up for that baby to be born. We see the shepherds who've come following the angels singing, "Peace on earth, goodwill to all." The artist wants us to understand that this baby wasn't born in a home or even in an inn. This baby was born where the animals were kept, a sort of stable, and so the artist wants us to understand that. We see the donkey that Mary rode, watching also. When Jesus was a few days old, Mary and Joseph took him to the temple. That was the presentation. The presentation at the temple. And it was a custom at that time to bring the child and commit the child to God and thank God for this miracle of birth. And bring a gift of doves. But something important happened as Mary and Joseph brought their baby to the temple. For an old man was approaching, as they did, and asked for the child and held this beautiful baby and said, "Now I can die in peace." For an angel had come to Simeon years before and told him that he would not die until he had seen the one who was coming, who would change everything. Anna was also there, and she saw this child, and she also knew this was the one. And she told everyone in the temple what had happened. Mary and Joseph didn't really understand, but they never forgot. And then the Magi came, the wise men from the east, from Persia. They came later. Some say as much as 2 years. They had come across the desert. You can see that the artist had never really seen a camel, for this is supposed to be the camel, but it doesn't matter. We know. They came to be in wonder in front of this child, who they knew from the star that had shown them the way. They knew this child was not like other children. So we call this the adoration. They come to wonder and just be in the presence of this child. You remember they brought gifts, strange gifts for a baby: gold, frankincense, like is used in worship, and myrrh, that is used for the dead. King Herod had heard these stories as well, that this star would show the way to the one who would change everything. And he understood this would be a king to rival him, and he didn't like that at all. The Magi were careful. They went back a different way so that Herod's soldiers couldn't follow them, but he consulted his own people, and he followed as well. And then something terrible happened. It's something we don't talk about very often because it's so sad. Herod didn't want a baby boy that would be a king. He wanted to be the only king. And so even though he couldn't follow the Magi, he sent his soldiers. And they killed every baby boy 2 years of age or younger. The artist wants us to show how sad all the parents are, that their children have been hurt. It must have been terrible. Even Herod doesn't look happy. But that was not the end of this story. For once again, an angel came to Joseph and told him to take his young family to Egypt. And they escaped ahead of the soldiers. Mary and the child on the donkey, and Joseph leading the way. And they stayed. They stayed in Egypt until King Herod had died and the news reached them. Jesus grew to be a boy, a young man, really. And the story went on, and the mystery grew deeper. This mystery of Christmas. This art comes from a book by Madeleine L'Engle called The Glorious Impossible. Another name for a mystery. You might want to look for it. But Madeleine L'Engle chose this art that was created in the 14th century by Giotto. These are only a tiny number of the frescoes that Giotto created for the Scrovegni family in the Scrovegni Chapel in Padua. The stars and the incarnation motif fill the ceiling of the chapel. And all of the stories, the wonderful stories of the glorious impossible, the mystery of Christmas, cover the walls of this chapel. I invite you to find it yourself and enjoy the mystery that was coming then and is still coming now. And until we come together again at the Story Circle, may the Lord bless you and keep you always.